Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to share with you about my experience at acquisition.com. First of all, I shouldn't have been there. I am a COO of Augusta Lawn Care Services and Mike Andy's entities, and this was for multi-million dollar business owners. So, what happened was I thought I would ask, never hurts to ask, and I had scheduled a call early in the morning with one of their reps, their team members, and they are in 15-minute slots. And I scheduled very early in the morning, and their person didn't show up. So I scheduled another time in the morning, and their person didn't show up. So I emailed them with a video of myself and telling them about what I do in the company and my role, and that I understand I wouldn't be the typical person they would allow come. So they did agree to let me come. Then I traveled and waited on the cyber attack issue we had. I waited 8 hours in the airport, and they canceled two of my flights, and so I had to drive back from Seattle, which is a couple hours. After that, hugely disappointing, and I missed the whole thing. Thankfully, there's no transfer, they say. But in this particular case, it had happened with so many other people that they let it happen. They let me transfer to September instead of August. So I want to share the book I got. So this is the book, and it's pretty thick. And I'll go through a little bit of the workshop and what it was like. And then it may be something that you would want to experience as well. So you want to make sure that you qualify to go. And you can just go online and search that acquisition.com workshop. And you can put your name in and a little bit about your business before you come. They'll ask for multiple details about your business. So, what they do with you is they do a business scorecard. And on here, they help you to figure out your revenue, your EBITDA, your revenue growth, your yearly revenue retention, your EBITDA margin, your LTV to CAC ratio, and then you value subtractors. And there's a key man risk, and that means you are the key man that is the risk. If you weren't there, would the business run without you? Your client risk, if you lost clients today, what would that look like? Single channel risk, meaning getting all of your customers and your leads through one channel. Market list, your market is small, your market is not so much small, but you're not getting leads in the market that you're in. Data, and so the valuation of your business is the adjusted valuation multiple and your current enterprise value. And that is what you figure out is your current enterprise value. They walk you through all of those numbers. So that happens the first day. They call their employees practitioners. And typically you would bring in people that were speakers, like trained speakers, and they did consider that on all the topics. But instead, they took 6 people from their own team that were trained in sales, marketing, building teams, HR, and they had those people speak on all these topics. And they say people that they've trained and brought in should be the people that are explaining and teaching. So they weren't groomed speakers or anything, they were their team, which is what we do here at Augusta as well. So they give 4 possible scenarios when investing our time, money, and effort, and that is the right problem the wrong way, the right problem the right way, which is what I've got here, wrong problem, wrong way, wrong problem, right way. They go through all of those. And bottom line, businesses grow up to their constraint and then no further. So they help you figure out what the constraint in your business is. Great CEOs build great businesses by allocating more resources to solving the constraint over and over. They did a pasta exercise where they had us take pasta. There was 6 groups of people that were broken out. I think it was by revenue. That's what I was trying to figure out. Some of us with the bigger companies were in groups. And so the first day, it was just listening to keynote speakers, and then they did this pasta exercise. So we were broken up in teams, and you had to build the highest tower, or however high you could get this thing, by working as a team, and to find out what the constraints would be to get it this high. So we used spaghetti, marshmallows, tape, and string. and they gave us 10 minutes to build this. So the constraint, if people did this terribly, we went over the constraints of why not. So the team that won, typically they have engineers or architects on their team, and they got this 39 inches, which was the highest it had ever been done. So they had to use creative thinking. They had to think fast. So constraints would have been more time. We all would have done better with more time. And the foundation, so the largest constraint in the system, how much taller would it have been if it was fixed? It was a good visual for all of us. So then they talked about value adders in the business and value subtractors. So for myself, there's multiple funnels of what I need to, what my focus was to come and to take notes on and make differences in. So for me, I have Command Center, which I am always wanting to improve, make better, inspire our team, get our revenue higher and our expenses lower, and so on. Then I also have the upcoming summit that we'll be hosting in January, how to make that a better experience for our attendees. How do I get the best speakers there, inspire those speakers to be their best, and just have an amazing event with my entire team serving the attendees. I want them to experience a lot of value when they leave. So I learned things from that as well. Little things we'd put in. Next year, we'll be doing our own workshops. So I got ideas for that. I got to-dos for myself when I get home. And then we had a lot of talk about software, social media, the types of people there. For this particular one, there were dentists, doctors, influencers, and marketing agents. There were a lot of different businesses represented. And it was really good. So the format of the day, first day was keynotes. Second day, we all had roundtables. So the whole room was broke up in 6 different big circles, and their 6 team members rotated from one to the other for 30 minutes, and they all have their area of expertise, and everybody in the group was able to ask questions about their business, talk about their constraints, and it was very structured. And this was like from their social media, their marketing, their HR person, all of these same people that were on stage talking were the people that after their keynotes and had kind of built a rapport with everyone, those were the ones that answered the questions in all of those 30-minute things. So I took a lot of notes, and I'm kind of a messy writer and write everywhere. But I take those things and I come home and then I implement them. So I just constantly took notes. They asked for no laptops and couldn't really use your laptop anyway, because unless you did a hotspot, you could not have your laptop that you were using. They requested that people not be using their cell phones. They weren't as strict as they were when Mike was there with bodyguards and all that. It is their own private facility, and they are Alex and Layla are high profile people. They did search our bags and have security that we walked through when we arrived, and that happens for every person that comes in the door. Their employees, their team was very attentive, made sure they greeted everyone. At the end, they stood in a line and said goodbye to us all and clapped when we came through, and it was pretty neat. So if there was a book mentioned, I wrote it down. Here's just some of the things I learned. Think more like an investor than a manager. Your resource allocation would be time, money, and knowledge and people. Do group interviews. Opportunity cost equals cost of inaction. So linear, we're only as good as the bottleneck. So we keep working. This is what I have for Command Center. We keep working on the business instead of working on the constraints. That's a problem. So businesses only grow up to their constraint. So there should be cycles of focusing on the constraint, one after the other, and build with the end in mind. So some people are wanting to build their company to sell it, and you want to start from the end and work your way backwards. What is the vision and what are you trying to achieve? Keep spending time to overcome the constraints over and over in a cycle. If you do things long enough, you will succeed. Always getting those quotes in there. Sometimes the constraint is the foundation. When we built the marshmallow spaghetti little towers or whatever we were building so they wouldn't fall over and they would be high, the foundation was the biggest problem. The better the foundation, the higher we could do it. So restraints would be leadership and management of people. And how many people are each of your people helping? So when we had these groups, the roundtable groups, I just said that I was listening and absorbing information. What I found, a big takeaway, was I thought that when I got there, I wouldn't understand most of what was talked about because I wasn't the business owner. And I am an operator and I work in the day-to-day operations of what the owner wants. But because I've spent so much time listening to software books, marketing books, real estate, leadership, and immersing myself in our own content and what we're doing with our franchisees, I was able to understand, I'd say 95% of it. And even though I was just listening and absorbing, I wasn't being quizzed or anything like that, I was very encouraged to know that just by immersing yourself in business, you're going to absorb, understand, and then be able to execute on that much better. I've always believed that even if you don't completely understand what you're reading or listening to, that it's still important to learn just to get the reps in there and learn the jargon, the language, and so much more to be good at what you're doing. So there are many value adds and metrics in business. So we focused on 6 of them, which was revenue, revenue growth, EBITDA, EBITDA margin, revenue retention, sales and marketing efficiency. So then they went through absolutely all 6 of those. Money, revenue, the money coming in, revenue growth, which is the sales increase over time. EBITDA is money left over before reinvestment. They broke all that down. What is it? Why does it matter? How do you find it? How do you change it? EBITDA margin, percentage of the money you keep. What is it? Why does it matter? How do you find it? How do you change it? Revenue retention. How many still buy? That's what you want to find out. Same questions for all of that. For this one, I put how do you change it? Consumption, collateral, cost of switching, choices, alternatives, causes, control money flow, community contracts, and the cadence. LTV to CAC ratio, what is it? How much does it cost to make money? Why does it matter? How much you spend to get a customer and how much you make per customer. How do you find it? How much you spend to get a customer compared to how much you make per customer. So how do you change it? Better lead magnet, better offer, better advertising, better funnel conversion, better sales, and lower COGS, upsell better, increase repurchase, cross-sell. So Scrum, you can look that up. It's an acronym. It's the framework that uses agile principles to move a project forward. Value detractors, how to make your company less unvaluable. So there are many risks in the business. The 5 they focused on was key man risk, key customer risk, single channel risk, market risk, and data risk. Then they went through each of those. What key customer risk was is a few customers can determine the fate of a business. So if you have large contracts, we just did a lot of graphs. If there was a whale, and the whale would be a big client that you have, and then you had 25 minnows. So they would take the whale, and if you lost the whale, would you still have the minnows? And then they showed where there was mostly minnows and no whale. So that would be, if you lost the whale, would you be able to still run the business with recurring income or smaller contracts? And they went over the pros and the cons of both. You definitely don't want to have your all all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, and that you have a couple large contracts. If you lose those, you're going to lose a large percent of your business. So the key man risk, losing many large franchises for us, that would be a large risk. Demands go beyond the demands of the customers. So why does it matter? How do you find it? If any customer or associated customers left tomorrow, would your revenue drop by 20% or more? Then how do you change it? Single channel risk. Most customers come from one source. What is it? Why does it matter? How do you find it? Do you get 70% or more of your customers from one place? If it stopped, would your business decline by 20%? So how do you change it? Different creative, different platform, build your own network and portfolio of leads. So I'm just giving you an idea of the things that were covered in depth. So your market risk would be all the people who may buy your stuff. What is it? Total potential customers. How do you find it? Do forecast indicate your industry will shrink, match, or beat population growth over the next 5 to 7 years. So how do you change that? You get niche at first, then scale market, then scale. Market is the same. Keep reiterating the product. Tier is out execute, iterate product for a large market. Some of this will not make sense to most of you, but every one of these things I put through the filter of all the things that I had come to learn about, which are the things in my wheelhouse. But still, learning from the CEO's point of view and what they experience was very valuable to me and what they're asking them to do. So another big section of it was to maximize your enterprise value by finding your constraint, how businesses get valued. They went through all that. And they really pushed that you want to be right and have other people think you are wrong. Meaning if you're the odd one out, if you're the outlier, that's good and that's okay. So they talk about the operational order of a business, small and newer businesses, large and more mature businesses. They teach you how to find your LTV CAC ratio. The second question is how do your LTV and CAC compare to the industry averages? They go through every one of those. CAC, how you advertise, engage, qualify, and close. So they would have a different speaker for all of these. And then they would have note pages where you could write out what do you think your constraint is. So you wanted to compare data, and then the roundtables were what happened on the second day. So when they call it a workshop, it's basically you're having your notebook and you're going through all the constraints in your business and trying to make some breakthroughs and make some changes to make you successful. Then they go through what is really my wheelhouse, and that is the missing who and hiring, changing the title for that, how to attract, interview, and select. They talked about their media team and the growth, and most of you listen to Alex and Layla's content. Alex spoke for he didn't speak on any topic really, but he answered questions. So he got I think it was 45 minutes to an hour, and people were able to ask questions. I see pros and cons to that. Most of us prefer no questions. We just want to hear the content. In this particular space, though, all the questions were mature and pertinent. When you go to events and you hear a lot of questions, people typically just turn off and they don't even listen. I turn off and don't even listen. But they gave kind of parameters of the questions to ask, to know what the constraint was, and for people to be really focused on how they answered questions. So they talked about the hiring problem, and then in each round table, we were able to ask questions. So that whole thing was each person, they went around in a circle, was able to talk about the constraints in their business and have that particular topic addressed. And this is it was pretty balanced from all angles of the business, sales, marketing, HR, your social media, which would be kind of your marketing. and 6 different topics that we were able to work through. The big thing was the HR. That is what Layla ended up talking about. So the second day was all the roundtables, Alex talking, and Layla as well talking about people. And there was no session from her either, except for questions and answers. So the idea is that you empower your team and you teach your team and you reiterate with your team so many times till they could give out the content of what you're typically giving out, which is what Alex and Layla did. Then they did what some of you have been seeing online are the really higher level companies, and you'll see Alex and the school company that they have, the guy that started that up, Sam. You see them in smaller groups and going over really big businesses and their constraints and their concerns and answering a lot of questions in a more informal setting. That is what they call the VAM. And they did some advertising for that, and that is for those larger companies. And so that is value appreciation method. And they bring these bigger businesses in and work very intimately with them on all of these same topics. They did a sales pitch, kind of, which you're stuck in the room, and that was a little annoying. I kind of checked out on that because it really wouldn't pertain to us. We're typically on that end of doing the turnarounds and helping people with their businesses. So having your title for your employees was important. And I tried to go with my own numbers and have them ready beforehand, which I would recommend if any of you go, because we have, when you go, to have all of your numbers in place and your questions dialed in. And I specifically had one question, which I asked to Layla, but I also was very, sensitive to having quality question. And maybe I already knew the answer, but they're videoing and creating content also, and I'm aware of that. So I asked my question. So some of you asked, why would you go? Why would you want to go? I highly recommend it. It's just to be in those settings and to learn how to learn and see the stackable skills of what they're teaching everyone was really important. It doesn't matter if you are the salesman in a company. You can learn more just by being there and absorbing and listening to struggles of other owners and the answers that were given to them. Also, kind of gauging where you are in your entrepreneurial journey and to know where you need more growth and what you need to be listening to and learning, where your detriments are, and then going through the thought process of, okay, I don't have time to get good at this. I'll never be good at this. Should I hand it off to someone else so I can focus on what I'm good at and the higher tasks that I need to be doing? Basically, the buy back your time principle, so that you can focus on really what you should be focusing on and hand off everything else. That's very important that you have some maker time. It doesn't matter what you're doing in the company. You need, for me, just getting out of the trenches for a few minutes, being a prisoner on a plane for a few hours. That's a way to really reset, reflect. It's not a vacation by any means. You were to be there 8:00 every day. You needed to sign a waiver. They provided a full-time espresso team that they brought in. They had snacks throughout the day. They had a breakfast meal and lunch, but no dinner. So because the price point was so high, it was $5,000 for 2 days. I would only recommend it for the CEO. I wouldn't bring all your team with you. They'd be bored out of their mind and wouldn't understand half of it. The Landscape Summit, the Blue Collar Summit, is more something that you'd want to bring your team to understand what you go through as a CEO. But but to really get a good understanding of what's happening in the company on a day-to-day basis and where they fit into that, that's where I would bring your team. I wouldn't even bring your GMs to this. It would be you learning how to run your business better and to really dial in all the things that you have heard Alex talk about. Oh, one thing that was funny was because I see all their content every single day, it was no different for me to see them in person, really. And so it kind of cracked me up when they would. I'm so used to, I don't watch unless Alex is putting stuff on the board and things. I always listen. And it was kind of funny that he's there on the stage and I go into like the same YouTube mode where I'm not even looking at him. And I realized this is the only time I'm actually going to be in the room with Alex and Layla. And I actually need to look at them as humans and not just look at the screen or look at the people that are asking the questions, but to really look at them. I find them no different, just people. And there wasn't any access to them at all, though. They came on stage, they talked about what their thing was. They were asked questions, and then they were guided off of the stage, and there was no other interaction. So at the end, there was feedback, and one of the things I gave feedback on was at our summit. I know that there's people that watch Mike's content, and it means everything to them to meet him. And I suggested they set parameters that people are just coming up to give them a thank you and take a picture. But for many people, like one gal asked a question and she said, "Oh, so I'm so sorry. I'm fangirl. I'm like doing hard fangirl right now." And it would have meant everything for her to have a picture with Layla. And so I suggested that there was like 100 people. There's a limit on how many people they have come. So it would have been a very quick to just walk people through a line and have their picture taken with them. And I did suggest that happen next time. Before you go, I'd recommend that you have your revenue plus profit and your key metrics of the overall numbers if you can. And let me see what else I got. A lot of things for notes. I took a lot of notes, which I will go through and read again. And then I before even the end of the first day, I was sending my team messages and going into action on the things I had learned. A lot of it was stuff that you learn on YouTube. So if you don't have the money to go, if you don't have the time to go, that's okay. I think that if you just listen to a lot of the content, keep listening to it, keep absorbing, even if you don't understand it, I would still listen to all of Alex's content. What was interesting to me was one of my biggest things being there was to talk to Dr. Cashy again. We had went out to dinner with them, him and his wife, Desiree. When we were there, they had come for our landscape summit last year. And this coming summit, we have 3 of his students speaking. And you'll get to hear Mike plus 2 of other people that Dr. Cashy has coached. And I was hoping to meet Dr. Cashy and be able to give him Mike's book. So Mike's newest book was dedicated to Dr. Cashy. And so it was a signed book with a letter from Mike inside. And I was hoping to get to see him, but he had left 2 months before. But I could see how his influence and his coaching permeated the whole place. So he helped to build that workshop structure for Alex and Layla. He is the personal coach for both of them. And you probably noticed the quality of their content and the way they handle themselves and everything has, it is all just blown up in the last couple of years and become so much better. A lot of what they do is influenced by Dr. Cashy. And a lot of what we are blessed with is because of the coaching Dr. Cashy gave to Mike. And we are the beneficiaries of that. I thought of it's the people behind the scenes that make it all happen. So the face was Alex and Layla, the person that helped them build all of this and have the ideas and help them be better. was Dr. Cashy. There are great people behind the scenes. You won't go online and find a whole bunch of stuff from him and YouTubes and him talking about his thing. His gift is really coaching other people and pulling out the greatness in them. So those kind of people in the businesses, they are not seen very much, but they're building the people that build the company. And it is very helpful. I have been impacted by Dr. Cashy by osmosis of working with Mike and seeing what Mike has learned that Dr. Cashy taught him and implements, and then I'm able to learn that as well. So some of you will want to go, and others are unable to go. And until you've built your business to a place where it's something that would be beneficial to you, just keep going to smaller events and learning everything you can, or events that you can afford. I think that the value that we pack into ours is just as good. There are things that I feel that we have dialed in a little better, and there are things that we need to learn. And I would say that they're a couple years ahead of us. So it's really nice to see people that are forward thinking and are ahead of you so you can learn from them and implement what works best for your journey in what you're doing. We're a franchise. We are a franchisor, and they are not. They have a different focus, which is to analyze businesses and see if they are companies that they can come into with their teams. It's not that they don't just buy the company, fire everybody, restructure it. They acquire these companies and receive a, a percentage of the revenue that comes in, but they coach the current team and help the current team get better and then analyze the business that way. They get a couple thousand applicants a week to go into their businesses and have them looked over and to see if they would be somebody that they would invest in. There were a lot fewer than I thought that they actually invest in, school being one of the biggest ones right now. It was interesting that Alex talked about waiting for companies to mature. So he watched school for a couple years and watched how they handled themselves and how they grew the company. And it was after that that he became kind of the face of it and has been the one that's helped help it grow so well because of his support and what he's putting into it. So keep listening to the content. Just absorb what you can. It took me 9 years to build myself in my position to be able to do something like this. 9 years of building teams and building up command center and our corporate locations to have teams that can manage everything for me to be able to go away for a 2-day workshop. It takes time. It's a long game. The struggle is real, and you have to be boots on the ground and in the trenches for a really long time. And I'm back in it today. And it's very important that I also push off lower level tasks to be working on the higher level things and keep moving on. Don't ever become stale. Just keep learning and growing and absorbing what you can and executing on everything that you can and building your teams and inspiring your teams to become more and better. Build the people, and the people will build the business. So I hope this little overview is helpful to you. They have a lot of them now, and they're all 2-day events. So last week, I think they had 2 or 3 that week. And so they're like banging them out now. So if you want to go, it's not hard to get in. And I do recommend it if you have a larger business managing a lot of people. But if you're the owner, I'd recommend that just the owner go. So I hope that's helpful. And let me know if you have any questions or anything I may have missed that you would want some feedback on. Uniforms. They let their team wear anything they wanted. People that were helping with the meals and such, they all wore black, but their actual team that presented, I was happy to see that they all were not dressed like Alex and talked like Alex, but they had their own personality and their own clothing and professionalism, and they all looked more professional than Alex. but that's his signature thing, whatever. But it was super good. It was a great experience, and I'm glad and privileged and honored that I was able to go. And everything that I learned, I will pour into my team, which will then help our franchisees, which will then help everybody in our community that I share with on here and who will hear this in the future. So we just all keep giving out and helping each other become better to go to these events. And next month, our leadership team will be going to the muster, and I will get details from that. And I'm excited to share that with you. I've been wanting to go there for years. So have a great day, and I appreciate you all.